Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to Radio Wasteland, your favorite show about the paranormal. I'm your host, Chauncey, and this is my co-host, Sean. How are you doing, Sean?
Hello. Good.
You had a good week since last week?
I sure did, yeah.
Anything exciting?
No, nothing I can talk about.
Well, good, because I have a lot to complain about.
Excellent. Let's go ahead. But before you do that, is it okay if I come out real quick here?
Sure.
All right. So, everyone, loyal listeners, I'm a trans woman. I go by Kara. I've been on hormones for like 3 years, but I've been doing Sean on the radio because voices are hard. But it's actually Kara. Okay.
So I thought you told me you had nothing going on this week and nothing to talk about. What is that business?
I thought it would be funny if I just did that without telling you.
Right,
it gives me fiendish glee to come out as trans on KCNR. So,
all right.
without telling anyone.
I like it.
All right.
So, Kara.
Now you all know.
Here's what I'm hating on this week.
Excellent. Go ahead.
I'm a smoker, and I hate it. It drives me bonkers. I'm trying to quit. I hate it.
Okay.
But I smoke on my back porch, and there's this kid. Mm-hmm. There's here's my porch. I got a fence. I got a run of rocks. And then a sidewalk, and this kid feels the need to walk across my yard the whole time and walk across my rocks.
I hate him already.
Right, and I'm sitting there on the back porch. He's like 12, smoking. And every time this kid walks by, he's all, oh, God. And I'm just all like, oh, my God. It makes me want to smoke more. It makes me just want to blow it in that kid's face.
Maybe he has asthma?
No.
No, it's clearly exaggerated coughing.
Clearly.
Okay. Maybe he's working.
And plus, this kid's been my neighbor for years, and I've heard a lot of complaining out of this kid over the years, and I just want to grab him and be all, the world's changing, people are changing, but still nobody likes a complainer. It's like, how is this going to help you in the future? Or is his family not telling him, man, you need to stop complaining?
I don't know.
So I'm like...
Maybe he's a sociopath.
I don't know. I'm going to kill this kid. I'm going to sneak in his house.
Well, now you never can.
Well, if I quit smoking, I can at least get second-degree murder, right? Like crime of passion, because I would just quit smoking and I got all...
Not if you premeditated on the radio 2 weeks before.
I'm not really going to do it.
Well, you say that now.
Well, I don't think this counts as premeditation.
But now you don't have the option, because they can just play this in court and be like...
Why are you using my own argument against me? Because I pulled this on you in our chat the other day. I told you...
and you had some...
You wanted to kill somebody, and I'm just all, now we can never kill him, because there's a paper trail.
And I thought that was very wise.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be great for me if it looked like I thought of it on the radio. But,
right.
Okay, fine.
So I have to say I've forgotten about whatever else it is that I hate, because I hate that kid so much.
Well, that's kind of good, actually, as a hate.
To hate a 12-year-old?
Well, it's like a sort of heat sink kind of thing, Yeah. You can focus all your hate on that.
Right.
Rather, it doesn't spill over into the rest of your life. You can just make a little hate shrine to this kid and then go on.
Right.
Totally. The life of a normal, well-adjusted person who doesn't have a hate shrine to a 12-year-old.
Now, to be fair, he's a good kid. He loves his mama. He's never fist fighting. He's never doing anything bad like that. He's a good kid.
How do you know any of this?
We've been neighbors with his family for, 15 years. His mom has worked at a Mexican restaurant that we frequent for 2 decades. I know they're good people. I know they're nice people. And I know the kid's a good kid. It's just the smoking thing, man. I'm going to kill him.
Okay. I see.
I just got to go spank him in front of his mom.
Wow, all right. 12-year-old, but okay.
Yeah, when do you cut off spanking? At the beginning now, I guess.
Oh, God. I'm so glad they put the views and opinions disclaimer before this first segment.
Well, I don't know. All my kids are old now. It's not like anybody's going to be all, don't let that guy have kids, My kids are already old, and they're successful enough.
My point is this segment is a train wreck.
Why?
Because it's weird and creepy.
I think a lot of people, especially smokers out there, have their opinions about these people who walk by and they're all...
Yeah, that's probably true.
You know, it's like those drivers who, like, try to teach you a lesson. Like, you make a mistake and they decide that they're going to slam on their brakes or something to try to teach you a lesson. You know, other people in society don't need to teach me a lesson.
Right.
You know, they just, if you make a mistake, you got to wave and say, oh, I'm sorry, because this might come as a shocker to some people. Everybody makes mistakes.
Is that true?
It is. It is. Yeah.
I've heard that, but I think that's kind of something they just tell all the mistake-making people so they don't feel so bad.
Well, you're here, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I make
Your parents obviously
I make
made
lots
one.
of mistakes.
Your parents obviously made one mistake.
Yeah, multiple times. I have siblings. Yeah.
I thought you only had one sibling.
I have a sibling.
Oh, okay. The other one died in the fire.
We don't talk about that.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
We're trying to move on from ever acknowledging they ever lived.
All right, let's get back to business then. Seeing how I forgot about the other thing that I hated, but I think it had something to do with the movie. Oh, speaking of movies, our Halloween show that's coming up, for those of you who want to discuss or listen to what we're discussing about, I should probably throw out that we're going to be watching and then discussing 2 horror films that are based on real-life events.
Indeed.
Those 2 movies that we're going to be watching and talking about is one called Veronica, about a possession that took place in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is going to be Winchester. With Dame Helen Mirren in it.
Ah.
I got to say, Winchester, I don't have high hopes for.
Okay.
But Helen Mirren, she's like a real actress. So I'm a little...
I do not know.
I don't know. What do you expect from these?
I don't watch a whole lot of horror movies, so I'm expecting that I'll either like them much less than they deserve or much more than they deserve, because I'm not jaded on all the horror tropes.
Well, I'm trying to get you to say what you said the other day about Winchester.
I don't remember what
you
I
said. Something to the effect of, like, the only person who thought that place was haunted was her.
You said that.
I did?
Yeah.
Man, I'm clever. Trying to get myself to say stuff. And I did.
Well done.
All right, back to business.
Do you have conversations with me, or do you just fill in my part?
I don't know.
In your brain.
Somebody's got to make you interesting.
I guess.
All right, so tonight we got G.E.E.K.s Paranormal Investigators. Indeed. I always like having the paranormal investigators. Of course, I always want to know the scary stuff.
And I'm sure they'll have the scoop on that.
Well, that's kind of the fun part about paranormal investigators, as opposed to, like, spiritualists and stuff like that. Right. The spiritualists will be talking about how it was a beautiful experience. And the paranormal investigators are really at the core looking for murderous psychopathic ghosts. That's what they want, isn't it?
I would.
I think it's purely semantic. If you didn't want that, you would call yourself something else.
Right.
All right. Well, you're listening to Radio Wasteland. Coming up next, we're going to be interviewing G.E.E.K.s Paranormal. Come on back. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland, and we are here with G.E.E.K.s Paranormal, Shauna and Vicky. We got you there with us?
Hi, how are ya?
Man, you guys are excited.
Yeah, that's some serious enthusiasm there.
That is some serious enthusiasm, you know. We
try.
Right. So, I always, let's separate some voices here. Which one's Shauna?
I'm Shauna.
Shauna.
And I'm Vicky.
And you're Vicky. All right. I'm Chauncey, and this is Kara.
Hello.
And
Hi.
And, okay, so, we always ask this at the beginning. Maybe I'll go to Shauna first. Really, what moved you in this direction? Was it an experience or a lifelong interest?
Well, it's funny that you ask, because we don't get asked that all the time. No, I'm just kidding. We actually, I had some experiences when I was younger. When I was about 5 years old, my papa died. And I remember being on my swing set and asking him to push me while I was crying, and I felt a nudge. And, of course, at that age, you just kind of brushed it off like, yeah, okay, whatever. Well, then later on in my teenage years, I messed with the Ouija board a little bit, and that was freaking nuts as it was. Whenever you have a planchette that moves on its own, that really gets you thinking about things. But again, I kind of pushed it aside. And in the military, I did the same thing with a friend, done the Ouija board, and her daughter was there, and her daughter was hiding in the bathroom saying that the people around the board didn't want her to be there. So that got me thinking, but it wasn't until I moved from Alabama to Oklahoma, and I was a supervisor, and me and a friend of mine started talking that she was like, you should totally make a group. So 6 years ago, I created G.E.E.K.s Paranormal, and we've been going since.
So what brought you in there, Vicki?
Okay, well, when I was a toddler...
I was in the womb.
Okay, so we're going back.
Apparently, I saw my grandmother, who had been dead at that point since my mom was 17, and she had me when she was like 23. And apparently, I described her perfectly to my mother. And when I was 5, I died.
How'd you die? Wait, you can't just skip over that. How'd you die?
Yeah, Vicki, you have to tell them everything.
I had a severe head injury, and where they literally had to push my skull back together, and imagine a 5-year-old with 120 staples to put their head back together. I had to have 2 blood transfusions, and it was a result of child abuse.
Oh, wow.
God.
And that's what's been wrong with her ever since. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
I'm kidding.
Probably.
I love you.
Okay, so continue. You died when you were 5.
World to me. Huh?
I said, go ahead, continue. You died when you were 5, and?
Yes. It basically opened up the world to me where I was able to start feeling and seeing spirits, and I don't know if it was the death or prior, because I saw my grandma when I was 3, about 3. So, but after that, I mean, I was able to sense things. I started having weird, dreams that would come true, and so I knew, I've always known that there was something beyond what people can see. I don't really remember what happened when I died, except for it felt almost like an astral projection. I remember seeing the bright light, and I'm pretty sure that was the surgery lights that I was seeing. But I don't have a whole lot of details of the actual death, but I've always known that there was something beyond. And when I was 7, because I was in a horrible abusive situation, I wanted to die myself. I tried to kill myself when I was 7 years old. And I had a visit by what I believe was an angel to basically tell me, to keep going. And I remember going up into a place and sitting on somebody's lap, and it's hard to talk about because most people don't want to believe you.
Right. Well, I mean, that's par for the course, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. But that always stayed with me, and there was a couple other times that I'd also gone up to that same place, and had once was after my mother died, because after my mom had mental illness, and that was why she was abusive. So as an adult, I understood and forgave her, and so we started to build a relationship back up after she got on the right medication. Mm-hmm. Well, she passed away in 2014. And we had just started 2 years back of having a decent relationship. And so I was heartbroken, and I basically asked God if I could just talk to my mom one more time. And I felt myself basically astral project out of my body. And I went up into a place that was what I could only assume was what I call the waiting period before heaven or whatever. And I was able to spend 1 minute, because that's all I asked God for was 1 minute. And I was able to spend this time with my mother one more time. And then when I returned to my body, I looked at the clock, and only 1 minute had passed.
Oh, crazy.
Huh.
So it seems like
those are insightful comments on that. Oh, crazy.
Oh, sorry, I'm a journalist. What do you want from me? So, is it common? It seems common. I have a very movie knowledge of this stuff. My transition into this stuff was just being a fan of horror and fantasy, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, maybe some of it's real. I want to look into it, But at least a common trope in films is that people who are connected to the afterlife in some sort of way had some serious trauma in their life. Do you feel that was the case, or do you notice that with other people?
In my situation, it probably was. I mean, I had a very traumatic childhood. I mean, literally from dying to child abuse to being bounced around in the foster care system to being homeless, to like all sorts of things that happened to me. And I'm very, I'm an empath, and I have very strong connections to the paranormal. However, I don't know that it's always the case. I know at least of one or two people that have very strong abilities that had a great childhood. So I don't, I couldn't answer that completely. What do you think, Shauna?
Well, I didn't have a traumatic childhood. I'm an only child. I think it just it depends on who God wants to have what. Because I'm a sort of a sensitive. I say that all the time. Vicky rolls her eyes.
A sort of sensitive. So actually, you guys keep saying God, and like I've found that it kind of seems like they tend to be mutually exclusive, but you don't find this world of paranormal and this world of ghosts and the world of angels and God to be mutually exclusive from one another.
Well, we believe that everybody has the right to believe what they want.
Exactly.
Well, of course.
So, but I am a strong believer of Jesus Christ, and I believe that, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, I believe all of this is connected. And I also believe in other religions.
Oh, I believe that, like, Buddhism and Christianity like and all that are all connected.
Every religion has some sort of right and some sort of wrong to it. Like in everything. Even Christianity, there's some wrong.
Oh, yeah.
There's some things that people didn't get right, that when the end does come, everybody's going to be like, oh, I didn't think of it like that.
That's how it was supposed to be. Oh, my gosh.
But I mean, I think you need to keep an open mind. And in order to be in this field, you definitely have to have an open mind, and that should flow into your religious beliefs as well.
Yes.
I see. Yeah, because so often, people, basically anything that has to do with ghosts or spirits other than, the Holy Spirit, they sort of associate it with evil or darkness. But I assume not all spirits or ghosts are evil. Some of them are just in limbo.
Yeah, deals with that firsthand.
All the time. My parents, my son, they go to a church that believes anything to do with spirits or demons.
Right.
And I'm in witchcraft.
Which I always find funny because, hello, the Holy Spirit? That was not a demon, guys.
Right. Well, they have the one. They have the one.
The one, yes. Exactly.
All right. Well, we're coming up on our first break here. You're listening to Shauna and Vicky from G.E.E.K.s Paranormal here on Radio Wasteland. Come on back. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland, and we're talking with G.E.E.K.s Paranormal, Shauna and Vicky. Before we were talking about sort of being sensitive and being, somewhat clairvoyant. I guess sensitive in this day and age of politics can mean a lot of things. Being spiritually sensitive.
All you psychic snowflakes out there.
Right. Yeah, totally. But
we have a
getting triggered by visions from the dead.
Right. Totally. Is one of you a nuts and bolts sort of, there tends to be the nuts and bolts one that's the scientific and the readouts. Who's reading the readouts?
He's reading the readouts?
Yeah.
Well,
we're both a little, skeptical as well because of the fact that we want our evidence to be authentic. So
yeah.
we're very,
our research has to be authentic. Our evidence has to be authentic.
If in doubt, we throw it out.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I understand that. You got to use the spiritual sensitivity to point you in the right direction, but when you get there, you really want to walk away with something concrete, I assume.
Oh, always.
And I believe that, Sean is a little bit more grounded in that area because I could fly, off the radar a little, and she has to be like, nope. Nick, bring it in.
Right. So what's one of these investigations look like for you guys when you guys go out and do this,
Oh, it's very long and tedious. We usually go out for as long as we possibly can, hopefully for at least an 8-hour to 12-hour investigation. And after that, the research is what takes the longest because you have 5 or 6 cameras that have 8 to 12 hours of video on it. Plus you have digis, which is about 4 or 5 digis that have stuff on it. And then you have to do all this review. And what happens is my team does the review, and then they send it to Vicki, since she's my second. And then once Vicki's done doing her little pan through, I get it, and I'll look through it and see if I need to throw anything out or if it's legit.
I see.
Then
so it passes through a lot of filters before you're willing to do anything with it.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then there's also the
research.
Amount of research and history because I do a lot of the history of it, and I'm not satisfied with the surface stuff. I have to keep digging and digging and digging until, I can't find any more things to dig.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. How's the history go with this sort of thing? Do you feel that it's more effective to go in knowing the history ahead of time or to go in and collect the data and then learn the history after the fact and make connections?
No, you collect the data first.
And then I do the history afterwards because it has to be authentic. And if I'm going in with my gifts or ability and I already know the history, well,
it's kind of cheating.
How's anybody going to believe that I actually felt something or actually saw something if I've already learned the history?
I'll do a little bit of the history research before we go into a place, so that way I know what's going on. But my sensitives, they stay clean. They don't go in knowing anything. They just know, hey, this is the location that this person's having a problem with or this business is having a problem with. And then we go from there. And then after everything is said and done, Vicki goes in and does the extensive research that we need for the property.
So have you ever gotten any concrete evidence that you really feel was of quality that you feel that the world should look at or take a second glance at?
Absolutely, yes. This is actually something that happened before she was even part of the team. We went to a place called Spiritual Rose in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Owner's very awesome. She's very nice. Gave us the whole place for the night. And, we just found during the investigation, we were doing a spirit box session, and I kept asking who was here, and the person kept replying, Jeffy. And once Vicki done the research, she found that it was an actual veteran that had.
Well, he ran to a bus and he tripped and fell and went underneath the bus and got run over and trapped under the bus. So he died. And he died literally right on the corner, right where they are, which is a couple years prior to her.
In 2014, when we investigated in 2016. And I'm only assuming that the reason he was really there was because I'm ex-military, and we had kind of mentioned that during the investigation, and he constantly kept trying to get my attention.
There's actually an EVP of military alphabet being read. We hear him say his name. We hear him at one point, and we actually have a video of it where he's telling her to be careful. There's another time where he says, Sean is saying something about there's lights over there and it was a car, and he's like, ignore that.
And there's also a time where I accidentally sat on a kitten, and he was like, yeah, keep laughing.
Yeah, so we have a lot of EVPs from...
And it's the same voice. That's the only reason why we say it's him.
Right.
throughout that.
So you actually have this on recording. That's interesting, because...
No, we do. We'll have to send it to you for you to share.
Yeah, we'd be happy to share because, there's so much of this going on, but, I guess this might be a good question. Is there a repository where paranormal investigators sort of get together and sort of collect that concrete evidence? Is there any one group or website or system that's sort of collecting the things that we feel are credible evidence?
I think a lot of the websites, there are websites that'll have a bunch of different paranormal investigators on it just for people that need help. So they have the paranormal investigators on there, but I haven't really seen, I do see websites that have like YouTube channels and their own videos of what they see, but I don't really consider it a collection. I think a lot of the paranormal investigators would like to keep their own collection just so it's their proof that something's happened.
Well, although in the paranormal world, a lot of us are become close like family.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
So when we can afford to spend the money, we can go to conventions, and it's basically like a family reunion.
Oh, it is.
You go and you get to see all your other weirdo paranormal investigators.
Your weirdo fam.
Your weirdo fam. And but we don't sit in a room and compare notes or something. It's like, if they share their evidence, we're like, oh, cool, and we might share us, but there's not really an archive set up for, that would be a great idea.
Oh, it would be.
There's not one so far that I'm aware of.
Plus, really, how would you even vet that, Because, do you feel that there's a lot of, we talk about this with UFO research often, that, do we feel that there are people out there sort of obviously perpetuating hoax? Now, I'm aware there are big ones that are perpetuating hoax to market soda pop or whatever. But do you think that there are like grassroots guys out there perpetuating hoaxes in order to make some money online?
See, that is the problem in our field, is that there is going to be a lot of people that are cons and faking stuff, and that gives the rest of us that are authentic bad names. And and when you are out there and you're not really quite sure what to believe in, and you find these sites of people that are basically faking it, or showing dust and saying it's orbs, and with no solid evidence, then you start to doubt the entire
everything
field.
Yeah,
completely, and that's heartbreaking. Actually,
it is very heartbreaking because there's a lot of very good evidence out there that shows that paranormal is real.
Absolutely.
But then you have the ones that want to go in and video edit something or Photoshop something, and it's like, come on.
Yeah, and I have seen that a lot, especially in those little paranormal groups that you get on Facebook that everybody wants, anybody can join. You'll see something, they'll be like, I took this picture and see this, and you could tell it's a Photoshop. And you're like, oh, come on, please don't do that. Please just don't. And it's not just because not only are they lying for the attention, but they're also putting a strike against the paranormal community. Yeah,
because if they can do it, why aren't the other people doing it?
Right, yeah, and so people become less convinced when the real evidence is out there.
Right. But luckily in the case of paranormal and once again UFOs, it seems that they're the big topics because we all know so many people who have experiences or have a story to tell, and they're all people that we don't think are nuts. I'm sure there are nuts on the internet, but a lot of these times we're hearing these stories from people that we know and give credence to. All right, well, we're coming up on our next break here. You're listening to Radio Wasteland as we're talking to Geeks Paranormal, Shauna and Vicky. Come on back. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. We're talking to Geeks Paranormal. We're talking to Shauna and Vicky. At the risk of pigeonholing myself into the stereotypical questions that I always ask, I have to ask you, what is the scariest thing that you've ever seen or dealt with while doing this?
We have to know.
We have to know. Maybe I'll ask you individually. Shauna, how about we start with you? What's the scariest thing that you've dealt with? Or has there even been anything scary? No, I mean, that's an acceptable answer.
Yeah.
We've been in this field for 6 years, and I really have not been so scared. I've been excited and ecstatic that we found something and heard a noise or heard a voice or seen something, but I have yet to be at that point where I'm so scared. I'm like, no, I'm not going back to that place.
You never thought that your cameraman was obsessed by it? What'd you say, Vicky? Go for it.
I haven't been scared either, but I have been creeped out by something that happened. And, well, actually, I could tell you 2 different stories about the same house.
Yeah, let's hear them.
Excellent.
One was I was looking through the stills after we did the investigation. I was flipping through them and stuff, and at one point, one of the pictures was of the kitchen of this house that we were at, and suddenly there was a little creature on the countertop that turned and looked at me in the still. And then, of course, I'm like, in the name of Jesus, be gone, and I tossed it. And then I sent it to Shauna afterwards, and, well, by then it was already gone. So she just gets a picture.
What am I supposed to be looking at?
She gets a picture of a kitchen, and there's nothing there. So it was a little creepy. But the other part was there was the clientele itself that was a little creepy on that one.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to get into great details because, but there was a little bit of a harassment going on after the fact that we had to kind of nip in the bud because they were constantly wanting me to come out and be alone with them. And like, we don't go anywhere alone.
No, we don't do anything alone.
At the risk of hovering around a PC topic, are you talking like in a molesty weird way they wanted you to come back?
I did have to tell
Well, I can't really tell what you're saying, so it's like I'm trying to figure out what exactly were they doing.
You figured it out.
Yeah,
you figured it out.
Pretty much like that.
So, I always want to know this from paranormal researchers, especially people who are sensitive. I can't help but to think that if all this stuff is going on out there, that there's some sort of like culture beyond. There is some sort of existence. I mean, are we just looking at spirits floating around who used to be alive, or are there spirits who are out there that maybe never existed in life, who are both benevolent and evil? Is there some sort of like culture or existence going on out there, or are we just sort of like looking at random stuff that can't figure out where to go?
Well, it depends on how you believe, but from my experience and my beliefs, we're all eternal beings. Like we always have been and always will be. And so we're only temporarily in our flesh. So before we were born, then we weren't, we were still an eternal being. We were still there. We were still existing. Either, whether it's here on a different plane or up in heaven or wherever, but we still existed. And once you die, your soul lives on. And so, but now your soul has attachments to people on earth because you lived here. So you want to kind of hang around and see what everybody's doing. And I believe that we still have free will on the other side. And Judgment Day hasn't come yet, so we're free to roam.
Go to Scotland.
Go to Scotland and blow up people's kills. Woo! That's what we're going to do.
That's what we're going to do every day.
We've already decided we're going to hunt. We're going to sit in parades and, blow.
Well, at the risk of sounding, at the risk of sounding silly, like when somebody passes on and they are this internal being, do they have a day job? Do they have a purpose? Do they have relationships with other things? That's kind of what I'm getting by saying a culture, or are they sort of thrown into the well of energy, or
Again, I think that follows the beliefs, because a lot of people want to believe that these people pass on to heaven, or
right, that they go to heaven, and there's some people that believe that ghost doesn't exist at all, and that anything that we feel is a demon, or there's some people that believe that if you're haunted, a place, that you're stuck in that place. But I think it depends on how you lived. I feel like if you were an evil cinnamon, you know what, you probably are stuck someplace. You're probably going to be forced to be stuck there until Judgment Day, until, you know, God decides what he's going to do with you, or until you're able to make right. I believe that you still have a chance on the other side to get your soul right a little bit before Judgment Day.
Eternity, you know, it's a mighty long time.
It is.
You think they'd throw you a second chance somewhere along the way.
Right, and, you know, as the Bible says, God said that, you know, he is not willing for anybody's soul to perish, anybody to, you know, basically burn in hell. So, I mean, and of course, I'm leaning towards the Christian belief. Now, if a listener is a different religion, they have a right to believe that whatever their eternity is. But I believe it's individual. I believe that, you know, if a person commits suicide, they might be trapped a little bit more, or at least that, you know, marker is trapped. What I mean by that is, when I believe that there is energy fingerprints, and that we all have them, and like when something happens, like we're been murdered, or like a suicide, or extreme excitement, like maybe a massive orgasm, I hate to say that on there, but like something very exciting or very traumatic happens, we leave an energy fingerprint behind. And when people come along and they see, you know, these kind of hauntings that keep playing over and over and over again, they're not really dealing with an actual haunting. That person's soul might not be there at all. It's just their fingerprint that was left behind.
Sure.
Fingerprint.
Like kind of the stone tape theory, maybe in some cases.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the end of the interview here. You know, can you tell our audience a little bit more about where they can find out more about you?
Oh, well, you can find out more about us by going to youtube.com/Geeks Paranormal. You can go to facebook.com/Geeks Paranormal. You can also find us on Instagram at G.E.E.K.s _Geeks All you gotta do is find the little geeky ghosts that are our symbol. It's a little boy with glasses and a little girl with pink hair and glasses, and you'll find us.
And we are on Spotify, Link, Tumblr, pretty much everywhere.
Sounds good. And we also link to you from Radio Wasteland's Facebook. So, you know, if you're having a hard time finding them, just go there. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for being on the show. You've been listening to Shauna and Vicky here on Radio Wasteland. That was Geeks Paranormal. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. You've been listening to our guests, Shauna and Vicky from Geeks Paranormal. You know, I really like paranormal guests, and it always just reminds me of how much opportunity you and I have to go do these sorts of things ourselves, and we just don't do, you know.
I went out and checked out a place for half an hour by myself once.
All right, so you got.
I think I'm a veteran.
Right. Nobody likes a bragger.
Okay.
All right. So, you know, it's like I just spend so much time like doing nothing, and then looking back on my life, going like, what? You know. So it's like
you
surely
just described living.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I guess so. But
I feel like we're jealous of our guests a lot.
I am jealous of our guests a lot.
They're very interesting.
I'm either jealous of them, or I think they're just batshit crazy.
Right.
You know, if I don't think they're crazy, I'm jealous of their lives.
Yeah, honestly, me too. Like that's a
sometimes
rule that
when
pretty
they're
much
crazy,
sums
I'm
up their
jealous
stuff.
too.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a crossover, you know.
Right.
But I did think that it was interesting. They're sort of. I wanted to learn a little bit more about it, but their sort of religious beliefs and still their interest in paranormal, because they seem so mutually exclusive when people are talking to me about it.
I never really got that, but you're right. We have had a bunch of guests who have had psychic powers or been sensitive or whatever and been raised in, like ultra strict religious backgrounds and then rebelled against that.
Right.
Like that's described several of our guests. And yet to me it seems like, nothing could could fit more with being religious than believing in spirits and so forth.
Yeah, well, as a non-Christian, I find it to be a touchy topic because I don't really want to offend people. But, like, when you believe in ghosts and demons and angels and otherworldly spirits, how do you know which is communicating with you at the time? And, how do you know when you say, praise Jesus, get this thing away from me, or whatever it is she said, in the name of Jesus, I command you out, or something, which is, something I've heard out of my very religious aunt-in-law. But, how do you know? And, I mean, does that work for the good guys? If you have some good spirit who's, like, trying to communicate with you and you get scared and you say, in the name of Jesus, get out of here, and, like, you just, does a good guy go, but I'm a good guy,
Yeah.
I don't know.
They say, in the name of Jesus, let me stay, please. And Jesus is just like, I'm not getting it. I'm not touching this.
Right. I don't want to get involved in your little squabble. Right. Yeah, totally. But I mean,
it's a valid point. Like, I don't know. I've actually talked to a bunch of, like, fairly hardcore Christians about this. And usually they don't really believe in ghosts, but I ask, do you believe that there are actually demons? And they're like, yes, of course. And I'm like, okay, but do you think they're, off in some other dimension doing their own demonic things? Or do you think that they're here, interacting on a paranormal basis in our lives? And they've pretty much always told me the latter.
That they're here.
That they're here, yes. And that seems to me to be a fairly orthodox Christian position, even though it's also what we would call paranormal.
Right. Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's, to me at least, they seem quite compatible.
Right. And like, so does that mean it, it's like my question I was asking, like, is there a culture? And I haven't really figured out how to be able to ask this question. So like even in the case of Christianity, are these demons hanging out, having meetings, talking about, I'm going to make this guy eat too many cookies? Well, I'm serious, because, I mean, if there are so many demons, like, involving themselves in our lives to mess us up, that's what they're doing to us. They're not like, we're not all Reagan from The Exorcist, with heads spinning around and getting freaky with the cross and stuff. A lot of what they're doing is subtle manipulations.
Sure.
And so are they all around us constantly, getting me to not quit smoking? Is that what's going on?
Well, you should get those paranormal investigators to help you.
Well, I'm serious. Do they have a physical being?
Right.
Do angels have magical powers where they're able to phase in and out of existence? Isn't this the will of God that causes this to happen? I don't know. I find it all just very, I find that there's a lot of strong belief connected with something that nobody really knows what's going on.
Right. Yeah, no one wants to talk about the details, really. And
I do.
Right, we do.
Right, yeah.
And I think the reason why is because this is exactly like the what are the aliens doing question in the UFO topic.
Right.
No one even begins to know how to answer that.
And those who do tend to be a little squirrely.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we don't accept their answers when we hear them because they're a little out there.
Right, yeah.
So, and same thing, if anyone claimed to have a strong answer on this topic, I would be like, great, let's hear it, and then I wouldn't believe them. I'm sure I wouldn't.
Yeah, and just to clarify for our audience, I'm not coming down on G.E.E.K.s Paranormal. They just prompted the question for me. I feel that they were very healthy skeptics when it came to a lot of this
I think anyone
stuff.
who's really intellectually honest has got to say, I don't know.
Right, exactly.
The answer to this question, but it's a fascinating question.
It is a fascinating question. So, I guess the question to the audience is, do you believe in angels and ghosts and demons and everything all at once? I mean, I don't know. What do you make of that business? You're listening to Radio Wasteland. Come on back. We got some news.
hear the guitar.
All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. Carrie, you got some news for us?
I do. We've got some new information about Planet X.
Oh, good. Actually,
Yes.
This is one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, so they just discovered a new dwarf planet. So we all know what a dwarf planet is. Pluto, for example, is a dwarf planet.
Yeah.
It was downgraded from being a planet to
So
being
sad.
a dwarf planet,
So sad.
as we all remember.
Yeah.
We'll pour a little bit out for Pluto there.
Totally. Named after my favorite Roman god. you
Oh,
know,
really?
And then,
No, yeah, Pluto's pretty great.
well, I mean,
I'm a
anything
fan.
having to do with hell, you know me.
Yeah.
You know, I like it evil. All right, so
That's
we
true.
found a new one. How
So-
big are we talking? I mean, is it bigger than Pluto or?
I believe it is smaller, but it's quite a bit farther out there. It's about twice as far out from the sun as Pluto is. So this is, way the heck out there. And there's, this by itself is not really news because there's a lot of objects like this.
Sure.
There's trans-Neptunian objects, I think they're called, and we know now that beyond Neptune, there's a zillion dwarf planets, basically.
Wait, the Kuiper Belt? Is that
Yeah.
the one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the reason this is interesting, though, is because, for one thing, we discovered this thing kind of by chance. Like, there's no star out there, so it's really hard to see what's going on.
Right.
So this thing just happened to be coming, closer to us than it almost ever does. It has an extremely wide orbit since it's so far out. And we just happened to spot it in a time when it was closer and more available. But also, the orbit of this thing and of several others seems to be being influenced by a mysterious larger body, which is estimated to be roughly twice the size of Earth.
Oh,
and
really?
somewhere out there, which is the Planet X theory, which at this point has actually a lot of credible support behind it. Every time we discover one of these new dwarf planets, people are saying, this is consistent with the idea that there's a Planet X. It isn't evidence for it, but we keep discovering new dwarf planets that don't contradict the idea, and it would be easy for them to do that, but they don't.
Right. So I guess this is where I get a little confused. For one, I want to point out that beyond the asteroid belt, that would make this the only rock terrestrial planet beyond the asteroid belt. And for it to be twice the size of Earth and way out there, that's really actually interesting because we got beyond the asteroid belt, you got two gas giants, two ice giants, the Kuiper Belt, and then the Oort cloud way out there.
Right, and most of the bodies are clustered around the gas giants. As
Right,
you expect. Which is part of what's odd about this. There's all these dwarf planets out here, and it's like, it would be very improbable for them to be out there if there wasn't something they're sort of coalescing.
holding them there.
Yeah.
Right. But aren't we to the point where through computer models we can put together a couple of these orbits and figure out exactly where this thing would be?
I guess not.
Yeah, I
Is the
guess
answer to
not too.
that.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I kind of felt that we were there.
Right. No, unfortunately, there's just a ton of unknowns about these types of bodies because we're just much more familiar with stars and so forth because,
It's what we can see. Right.
Exactly. It wasn't that long ago that we really started having the ability to see exoplanets in the first place.
Right.
And you're pretty much constantly seeing articles, here's a new type of exoplanet that we never thought could exist, type of thing.
Right.
It's the same thing here, except they aren't even messing with the gravity of a star, so they're even harder to see, although they're closer to us.
Right. Well, I mean, you never know what you're going to find out there. Didn't I forget the name of the probe that flew by Pluto?
Voyager?
But
no.
Well,
mind.
I mean, Voyager did, but I want to say it was something else here recently.
You mean the one that took a picture of Pluto?
Yeah. And
revealed to the world that Pluto is a Care Bear?
Yeah, but that there was water on it. That there was ice on Pluto.
Oh, okay.
That potentially...
This I do not remember, but yeah.
Potentially had liquid water under the surface due to the core of Pluto still being warm. and it just sort of prompts the idea that, of all these things that we think of where life could be,
right?
How could it possibly be Pluto?
Yeah.
And so this larger planet out there, in order to be twice the size of Earth, that's a pretty big terrestrial planet.
Right.
And if it has enough small bodies around it pulling on it, it is potentially creating enough heat to actually have liquid water way out there.
Yeah, it's quite possible. There is just so much unknown about these bodies that are so far away from the center of the solar system. The idea of something twice the size of Earth out there, a few decades ago, we would have said, no way.
Right.
Well, actually, maybe not a few decades ago, because I think the Planet X theory was floating around then, too. But it wasn't very credible at the time.
Right, yeah.
The point is, we really have no idea what a Planet X might look like.
Right.
It's difficult to imagine it harboring, life, given, that takes sunlight.
Right.
And there's not going to be a lot of that in Planet X's neighborhood, but... As I said, we don't know. It's very
when you
strange.
really think about it, the only planets that were actually discovered were Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. Were the only planets that were actually discovered. All the rest could be seen with the naked eye, and we've seen since ancient times.
Right.
So really, there's actually a fairly short history of discovering planets for humans. So it's like, I don't know, why not?
Yeah.
I say, why not?
It's quite possible. It's very exciting. We don't know a whole lot about space. Maybe it's just some huge planet-sized whale just floating out there, chilling.
Oh yeah. Well, what about the bubble theory? That's absolutely terrifying.
I don't
that
know
basically that we're basically a break-off universe that's basically in a bubble being held by surface tension to the actual universe, and it could pop at any moment.
I don't like that.
I don't like it either, but it's totally possible.
Now, wouldn't that be great if we just, cut all these carbon emissions and everything, and then the universe pops?
Totally. It turns out that that's what's kind of keeping the bubble together.
Oh, great.
All right. You're listening to Radio Wasteland. What do you think? Planet X out there? What do you think? Is it Nibiru? You think that there are freaky, giant god things out there that want to take our gold and breathe
god. It's Yog-Sothoth. Is what's out there.
You're getting all Lovecraftian. I love it.
I'm calling it now. Yep.
All right. Well, this has been Chauncey and Kara for Radio Wasteland. Come on back next week.
Here we are, we fell together, and there you go, we fell apart. Friendly night, farewell together, but please don't start. Will you please not start? It's like that, I'm like the day. 13 hours, all you would keep it, then fade away. Watch it fade away. I can see, I can see, I can see, I can see, I know how it will end. Swim in my bottomless pit of charm, you be my closest friend. I warned and warned and warned and warned, if only you'd recall. I got friends for all my life, I don't need new ones at all. So my only question might be, what are you doing here? Here we are, we fell together, and there you go, we fell apart. Friendly night, farewell the tether, but please don't start. Will you please?